I am Audrey Sterling, 32 years old and living in the beautiful, historic city of Charlottesville, Virginia. For years, I poured every ounce of my passion and savings into transforming a dilapidated old estate into Riverside Manor, a premier event venue, a place where dreams were built and celebrated. My world revolved around linen choices, floral arrangements, and the soft glow of string lights at dusk. I loved what I did, the quiet satisfaction of seeing a vision come to life. My parents, well, they saw it as a hobby that got a little out of hand. They were fixtures in the Charlottesville social scene, old money, old names, and they had a very specific idea of what success looked like, and my hands-on, self-made path often fell short in their eyes. There was a quiet hum of expectation that I should follow a more conventional, perhaps more acceptable, career path, something that came with a corner office and a prestigious title, not mud on my boots from inspecting the gardens. I tried not to let it bother me, but the desire for their approval was like a constant, soft ache in my chest. Then James came into my life. He was a civil engineer, not from their exclusive country club world, but he had kind eyes, a brilliant mind, and a steady, reassuring presence that felt like home. He saw me, truly saw me, not as the daughter of the Sterlings or the owner of Riverside Manor, but as Audrey. He never asked me to be anything less than myself, and that was a freedom I hadn't realized I craved so desperately. My parents, however, saw him as merely adequate, a nice enough young man, but certainly not the kind of match they had envisioned for their daughter. This subtle disapproval was a constant, low-level thrum of dissatisfaction in our interactions, making me feel like I was always defending my choices, always just a little bit out of step with their perfect world. My world, stable and carefully built, was shaken violently one Tuesday afternoon. I was in my downtown office, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across my desk, sifting through catering contracts for an upcoming event at Riverside. My phone rang, and it was Patricia, my venue manager, her voice tight with confusion. "Miss Sterling," she began, "a woman identifying herself as your mother called this afternoon and requested that we cancel your wedding arrangements." I froze, the pen slipping from my fingers. "I'm sorry, Patricia, would you repeat that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She explained that my mother had stated she was stepping in for me and believed the marriage was a mistake. Patricia had informed her that only the property owner could authorize such a change, and she wanted to ensure I heard it directly from her, the owner. My parents, in their infinite wisdom and misguided attempts to protect me, had just tried to cancel my wedding to James, at the very estate I had painstakingly purchased, restored, and built into a thriving business. They still genuinely believed I was just managing other people's properties, getting by on long hours and good reviews. They had absolutely no idea that Riverside Manor, the sprawling estate with its manicured gardens, glittering ballroom, and every single contract behind it, belonged to me. The threat wasn't just to my wedding. It was to my autonomy, my identity, and my entire relationship with James, all undermined by their condescending interference. The problem wasn't just an expensive season they thought they were saving me from. It was their complete and utter disrespect for my adult life and my judgment. My nemesis, in that moment, was not some outside force, but the very people who were supposed to love and support me, who had instead become an obstacle to my happiness, blind to my achievements, and convinced of their own superior understanding of my life. The dissatisfaction that had always simmered beneath the surface now boiled over, leaving me with a profound sense of betrayal and a desperate need to reclaim my narrative. That evening, I drove to my parents' house, the familiar gravel crunching under my tires as I pulled into their circular drive. The table was already set precisely, with the tall ivory candles my mother reserved for what she called important conversations. My father sat at the head, folding his napkin with the same composed expression he wore at high-stakes board meetings. I felt a familiar tightening in my stomach, that childhood desire to please, to finally earn their unqualified approval. I took my seat, and the air was thick with unspoken tension, broken only by the clinking of silverware. My mother spoke first, her voice calm, almost detached, as if she were discussing the weather. "We called the venue and canceled everything, Audrey," she announced, her gaze fixed on a centerpiece. "That man simply isn't right for you." My father, ever the supportive partner in their joint ventures, added quietly, "The deposit was non-refundable anyway, so at least we saved you from an expensive season you would have regretted." He delivered it with the self-satisfied air of a man who had efficiently handled a difficult matter. My stomach churned. I tried to keep my voice steady, to ask for clarity, to give them a chance to understand. "You called my venue?" I managed, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. My mother offered me that patient, indulgent smile she always used when she expected agreement wrapped in gratitude. "We simply handled a detail you were too emotionally close to see clearly," she said, her tone implying I was a child needing guidance. The casual dismissal of James, of my entire relationship, cut deep. They saw him as not right because he didn't fit their pre-approved mold of old money and established connections. He had a reliable car, a respectable career, and a quiet confidence that never tried to overshadow mine, but that simply wasn't enough for them. They didn't see his kindness, his unwavering support, his deep love for me. He simply wasn't theirs. I opened my mouth to explain, to tell them that the deposit was an irrelevant detail for the owner, to reveal that Riverside Manor was my property, that they had meddled with my business, but the words caught in my throat. Just then my phone lit up again on the table, vibrating with Patricia's name. I answered it, putting her on speaker without a moment's hesitation. "Miss Sterling, I just wanted to confirm that your event remains active." Patricia's professional voice filled the quiet dining room. "We've added an extra approval note to the account. Since the request came from someone other than the property owner, we thought that was best." My father's brow furrowed first, a slow ripple of confusion spreading across his face. "The property owner?" he asked, his voice losing its confident edge. I set my water glass down carefully, the crystal making a small, resonant chime against the polished wood. I looked from my father's bewildered face to my mother's, which was now a mask of dawning realization and disbelief. "Yes," I said, my voice quiet but firm, "that would be me." The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy with unspoken accusations and the shattering of their long-held illusions. My mother blinked once, then again, her perfect composure finally cracking. I could have unleashed a torrent of explanations right there. I could have detailed the endless hours, the permit applications, the contractors, the weekends I spent walking the overgrown gardens with coffee in one hand and a notebook in the other, painstakingly mapping out every possibility of what Riverside Manor could become. I could have told them how every booking helped me fund the next phase of restoration, how the place they called too much or a folly had become the strongest, most fulfilling decision I had ever made. I could have described the financial statements, the legal documents, the deeds that proved my complete and undeniable ownership. But I didn't. I just let the silence do its work, a silence that felt heavier and more profound than any argument could have been. Their faces, usually so confident and unshakable, were now a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and a dawning understanding of just how profoundly they had misunderstood and disrespected me. But even in that moment, I knew it wasn't enough. The truth, simply stated, wouldn't erase years of subtle judgment and their deeply ingrained need to control. This wasn't a victory. It was a revelation of a chasm between us that I hadn't fully grasped until now. It was a realization that their desire for control and their inability to see me as an independent, capable woman went far deeper than I thought. My attempt to simply state the truth had failed to bridge the gap. Instead, it had merely exposed the immense distance between us, leaving me feeling more alone and unheard than ever. This was my rock bottom, understanding that their love was conditional, that their approval was something I could never truly earn by being myself. The problem had only grown larger, transforming from a simple misunderstanding into a deep, painful rift. Later that night, I called James from the terrace at Riverside Manor, the gentle spring breeze rustling through the ancient oaks. He listened patiently, without interruption, as I recounted the evening's surreal events. When I finished, a long, quiet pause stretched between us. "So, my love," he finally said, his voice soft and full of understanding, "what do you want the next chapter to look like?" A faint smile touched my lips. "Beautiful," I said, looking out at the moonlit gardens, a place I had made my own. "Very organized and incredibly memorable." He chuckled softly. "That sounds like you already have a plan, Audrey." "I do," I confirmed, a new kind of resolve settling deep within me. This wasn't just about getting married. It was about reclaiming my narrative, asserting my independence, and doing it on my terms in my own space. Over the next 3 days, my plan began to unfold, meticulous and precise. I decided to move the rehearsal dinner, originally planned for a small, intimate gathering, to Riverside Manor itself. I expanded the guest list significantly, including not just our closest friends and family, but also a carefully curated selection of my parents' most influential social acquaintances. people they sought to impress. I worked with my team to adjust the seating chart, ensuring every detail was perfect, adding just enough sparkle and elegance to make the evening feel effortlessly grand. My sister Vanessa, who understood me better than anyone, promised she would be there, a fierce advocate. James's parents, wonderful and supportive, offered to arrive early to help with anything needed, their presence a comforting balm. When my mother received her gilded invitation to the rehearsal dinner at Riverside Manor, she called within the hour, her voice a careful blend of curiosity and barely concealed disapproval. "A rehearsal dinner at Riverside?" she questioned, a hint of disdain in her tone. "That seems a bit grand, Audrey, for a rehearsal." I looked at a framed twilight photograph of the estate hanging on my office wall, bathed in the soft glow of sunset, a testament to years of hard work. "I think it will be exactly right, Mother," I replied, my voice calm, unwavering. The night arrived, wrapped in the soft caress of a Charlottesville spring evening, the air fragrant with blooming jasmine. Riverside Manor glowed under a canopy of twinkling string lights, a jewel nestled in the verdant landscape. Guests drifted through the meticulously manicured gardens, champagne flutes in hand, their laughter and conversation weaving through the air like a delicate melody. James, looking every bit the epitome of peace and strength in his navy suit, stood by my side, his hand a warm, grounding presence on my back. My parents arrived precisely on time. As always, their expressions a studied blend of polite curiosity and mild appraisal. They took in every inch of the estate, from the polished hardwood floors of the ballroom to the intricate floral arrangements, with the easy approval of people who still believed they were merely evaluating someone else's choices, perhaps a client's extravagant taste. They settled into their seats at one of the beautifully adorned tables, oblivious to the carefully orchestrated revelation that was about to unfold. Dinner proceeded flawlessly, a symphony of exquisite flavors and impeccable service. As dessert was served, I rose from my seat, a delicate bell-like chime from my glass quieting the buzzing conversations in the ballroom. Every eye turned to me. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice clear and confident, echoing slightly in the grand space. "Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate the upcoming marriage of James and me." I paused, my gaze sweeping across the faces in the room, lingering for a moment on my parents, whose expressions were still unreadable. "It's truly a joy to share this special occasion with all of you here at Riverside Manor, a place that holds a very dear spot in my heart." I took a breath, letting the words hang in the air, allowing the full weight of them to settle upon my parents' ears. Many of you know Riverside Manor as a premier event space, a place where beautiful moments are crafted. What some of you may not realize is that this magnificent estate, this entire property, is not just a venue I manage. It is my passion, my dream realized, and my home. I acquired Riverside Manor several years ago and have poured my heart and soul, and every penny I've earned, into restoring it to its former glory. It is my business, my labor of love, and a testament to what can be achieved with dedication and unwavering vision. My parents' faces, across the room, were a study in utter disbelief. My mother's perfect smile had vanished, replaced by a wide-eyed shock. My father's jaw had gone slack, his usual composure utterly shattered. Their carefully constructed world, where I was merely a manager, needing their guidance and intervention, had crumbled before their very eyes, publicly and undeniably. "James," I continued, turning to him, my voice filled with warmth, "thank you for seeing me, for loving me, and for always supporting my dreams, even the ones that seemed a bit grand." He squeezed my hand, a silent promise. "And to everyone here, thank you for celebrating with us in this beautiful place that is so uniquely ours." I lifted my glass. "To love, to new beginnings, and to the courage to build your own path." The cheers and applause that erupted were deafening, a wave of genuine warmth and celebration. My parents, however, remained frozen, their faces pale, unable to join in the toast, unable to escape the public, undeniable truth. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of genuine joy and heartfelt congratulations. My parents remained largely silent, observing the scene with a stunned detachment. Their attempts to cancel my wedding had not only failed, but had inadvertently set the stage for my greatest triumph, turning their sabotage into an unexpected, grand unveiling of my true independence and success. The poetic justice of it all was profound. They had sought to control my life, to dictate my choices, and instead, they were forced to witness my flourishing, my strength, and my happiness, all orchestrated within the very walls they thought they had power over. Their interference, born of misguided affection and deep-seated snobbery, had ironically led to the most spectacular event in Riverside Manor's history, a showcase that brought even more attention and bookings to my business in the following weeks. It was a subtle, unsaid twist that their non-refundable deposit comment was so hilariously off the mark. As the owner of Riverside Manor, the concept of a deposit for my own wedding was an internal accounting matter, a mere entry on a ledger. There was never any money to be saved from losing. Their entire premise was built on a foundation of ignorance about my life and my business. In the days and weeks that followed, my relationship with my parents shifted irrevocably. The public revelation at the rehearsal dinner had forced them to confront their assumptions, their condescension, and their deeply ingrained need to control. There were no grand apologies, no dramatic confrontations, but a quiet, almost respectful distance settled between us. They no longer offered unsolicited advice about my life choices or James. They simply listened, sometimes with a touch of newfound awe. I no longer sought their approval, the ache in my chest finally gone, replaced by a quiet confidence born of self-validation. James and I were married in a beautiful ceremony at Riverside Manor, surrounded by the love and support of our chosen family and friends. The wedding was everything I had dreamed of, a celebration of two lives intertwined, built on mutual respect and unwavering love. My parents attended, subdued but present, witnessing the joy they had tried to prevent. Riverside Manor continued to thrive, its reputation enhanced by the story of the elegant, unexpected rehearsal dinner. My journey from a daughter seeking approval to a woman owning her truth was complete. And perhaps, the biggest twist of all was that their attempt to sabotage my wedding had inadvertently given me the courage to fully step into my own power, and had provided the most unforgettable and ultimately successful marketing event my business could ever have asked for.